today. That's good. That's good. Parades. Ever been one? I've been to a couple of them, but there's all kinds of parades anymore. They seem to be such an American thing. You know, we have our own flavor to it, and we've got all different kinds of ways to look at them. Parades of dignitaries, and then we got, a lot of times we parade, and what you see is the real cool cars and things like that. And if you really start to think about the big parades, then we get into these extravagant floats and things that is, in fact, if you Google extravagant floats, well, I wouldn't recommend doing that. But I did. I wanted to see a couple of them that was kind of different. But now we have, in parades at one time were more about military stuff, that it was always a way to celebrate. We got coronations and things like that. There's some parades that celebrate the kingly stuff that we know. And what we start to see and find in common in all this stuff here is that it's the ride. It's the ride. And the higher up you go into the importance of you as to what kind of ride you get. So we have, we got this. This is a picture of a 1972 convertible Mustang. Jan, I bought this car in 1972. We ordered it from the factory and waited many months to get it. But when I restored it, guess who wanted to use it? The high school kids for homecoming. And so we know about things like that because they're the most important. And so that when you're in a parade and you've got cars that's like this, that the homecoming king and queen, they're the last ones in the football bowl because the court goes first. And then the homecoming queen follows after that. And then they don't want to talk to you for another year until they want to borrow the car. Something to think about before you restore a car. Somebody's going to ask you to borrow it. It's about the ride. It's about the ride. That's the whole point. So we go back to our story today, and my goal is to try to tell you something about this event that you don't know. And that could be a little impossible because it's a pretty straightforward event. It happens in 11 verses, 7 of which have to do with the donkey. He's either setting up the arrangements for the donkey or the disciples are going to get it and bring it back to him and then set him on it, and the branches are cut, and it's all about the ride. It's all about the ride. When we do the background on this text, we know that the introduction of palm branches that we had it read from the gospel, we're in the Gospel of Mark this morning. There's no mention of palm branches. It's got branches that was there. You got to go to Luke to find out that they were palm branches. And there's no mention of children either. So I should have had the children seated here this morning and you guys walking around. Next time we go to Mark text, remind me to do that. We'll do that. The problem today is a problem of, what's the right word for this? It's a problem of one who doesn't meet expectations. And nobody wants to tell somebody that doesn't meet expectations that directly. We find other ways to do that. In the Mark text, Jesus is he just comes on the Jericho road. He has been up in the region of Galilee. He has already started to prepare his disciples for what is going to happen as soon as he gets to Jerusalem. And in Mark's text, this is the first and only time Jesus comes to Jerusalem. This is the first time Jesus enters the city of Jerusalem. And Jesus is coming from the area of Bethany and Bethphage, which are two adjacent areas that meet somewhere near the Mount of Olives. And he's going to enter the east gate, which is where nobody's come in. Certainly not the royalty of the Roman legions and the others. Jesus comes and he rides. It's about the ride. Most scholars and others think that there was another parade that week because this is a celebration week that's going on. And since the Romans occupied the area of the city of Jerusalem, most think that this was a daily event. Just like, think of it as the changing of the guard. And everybody that is part of Jerusalem gets to see this most of the time. The legions of Roman soldiers that are coming and going and doing their thing. And they come in to the front door. They don't use the east gate. And they don't ride donkeys. The soldiers will walk, but those that are in charge will be on horses. Weapons of war displayed. A little bit different than this picture that we've got on the screen. As I said, that this is the text today is a matter of someone who does not meet expectations. In the Mark text also, Jesus has come for a reason, from a region, and the last thing he has done before he starts this road, this walk from Jericho, while he was in Jericho, there was a blind man named Bartimaeus that hollered at him, and he has cured him of his inability to see. Blind Bartimaeus the beggar, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he did. And now he can see. And it also says that as he left Jericho, large crowds went with him. I don't know how big that is, but I assume that's fairly few people. Large crowds are following Jesus, who has just made a blind man see. Large crowds that have witnessed, possibly still some of the ones from the feeding of the 5,000, possibly some from the feeding of the 4,000 that's mentioned in Mark. The withered hand that Jesus had restored. The leper that was made clean. The demon that was exorcised. But yet now as he comes to Jerusalem, those outside that maybe were with him, they're screaming, Hosanna, Son of David. Here comes our King. But with all the Romans that's parading on the inside, if they really thought that this is who he says he is and who the crowd thinks he is, how long do you think that this parade would last? Not very long. He's not going to hurt anybody. He's a prophet. He's a prophet. And it probably goes the way that the text presents it. It probably goes a whole lot like this.
He's a prophet, a great prophet. A prophet? On a donkey? The next day, the large crowd had come.
About the way you envisioned it? Kind of sort of like that. Just lots of confusion to start with. Lots of confusion. And I like the way you jumped to the next day. There's a good reason for that. There's a very good reason for that. Jesus comes into the city. You've heard all the hype about him. You've heard it all, and they're telling you who it is. And the Romans, he's a prophet, another prophet. There's been many prophets that's come before, and many people who claim to be the Messiah before Jesus. Rome has killed more than one before they got to Jesus that claimed to be the Messiah. And there's some famous ones too. The revolution and revolt has been going on for a couple, at least 3 or 4 generations. And it will end after Jesus' death in 70 AD, when they'll just have enough of it and just destroy the temple and it'll be gone. But Jesus already has a handle on this and knows. The problem is that Jesus doesn't cure anybody of anything once he gets to Jerusalem. He doesn't bring the sight back to anybody. He lets the people speak for him. Son of David has come into this town, and you will believe what you will believe. And for most of them, it's just like I said. He didn't meet expectations. He didn't do anything. Why should we put our faith and hope in him? The second most important event in the history of the universe is happening that week, and Jesus doesn't measure up. Next to creation, suffering, death, and resurrection is it. Think about it. When God decided to act in this world. The problem in the world that we live in today is basically the same thing. It's getting harder and harder and harder for anybody to exceed expectations. Look at the problems that we've got in the sports world, for instance. We can't do it on our own anymore, so what do? Performance-enhancing drugs. We've got to do better than we did last year. Otherwise, we won't be the people that they expect to see. We won't get that high place of honor on the float. And we have to have that. $60 million contracts a year, not enough. We want more next year. And so we have to exceed expectations. Look at the extreme games that we play right now, the X Games that's done. You can't do enough tricks. Look at the Olympics, how hard it's been getting to get better and better. You have to do one more trick, one more turn, one more flip, and the problem that it's caused. Jesus comes into Jerusalem, and the text for this morning tells us there's 3 events. He sends for the donkey, he enters the gate, and he goes to the temple. 3 events. 3 events. More is about the donkey, and I wondered about that. I thought, why is this donkey so important? What is it saying about us? And how can we all know this story so well. This entrance into Jerusalem is told in all 4 Gospels. We've heard it, and if you've lived very long and all been in church, you know that every preacher has expounded on this text in a different way. And I may not tell you anything different than you haven't heard before today. But I will suggest this, that it is about expectations. It's about Christ's expectation of you. Jesus sends for his disciples into the city to get the donkey. It's about the ride. This is what I'll ride. Go get the donkey. And so it's no big deal. He goes into the city. It's right where they said it was going to be. He unties the donkey, brings it back, sets him on it. If anyone asks you, what are you doing with the donkey? Tell them the Lord has need of it. Why is that important? Why is that significant? Is that some sort of code that Jesus used? Did he already have this all prearranged? Did he own the donkey to begin with and have it tied up there to begin so that it would be right where its disciples? Did he need this as some sort of idea that now the disciples are really, and the crowds will really believe in me because they can see that I can look into the future? Whose benefit is this for? If anyone asks you why you're untying the colt, tell them the Lord has need of it. It's the only time in the Gospel of Mark that Mark uses the term Lord. King. The king has need of it. And the person lets it go. Take it. I'll bring it right back when I'm done with it. Strange words. Strange words. It would seem that the message for us this morning, as we look at this text and see what this triumphant entrance means, we know that what's going to happen to Jesus, because he didn't measure up, because he didn't meet expectation, Holy Thursday is going to occur and Good Friday. Jesus is going to raise the expectations of everybody's hope right up to the roof, and then what's going to happen? It'll be crushed like it was nothing, and another prophet has come and gone. But the person with the colt says, take it. Whatever resources I have that God needs, good to go. Then I thought, I wonder, is this the message of the text? What would we withhold that God needs from you? So now the question becomes, God has need of you. Not the colt. As Jesus comes in and sends his disciples off and makes sure that he not only tells them that and tells them what's going to happen, and it's almost like it's so predictable, the crowd is there to say, what are you doing untying the colt? The Lord has need of it. Oh, okay. The guy owned the fact that Jesus was Lord. Do you? I just wonder if somebody comes up to my red convertible out there and says the Lord needs it, so? So do I. I think I need it more. Lord needs your strength. I'm spent. I need to rest. I give it all somewhere else. Tell him to go elsewhere and get it. The Lord needs your mind. I don't have a mind left. The world has taken it from me. And besides that, the Lord can find somebody else that's got a better mind. Do you see where we're going with this? What would you withhold? What would you withhold from the Lord who calls upon you and says, I need this from you? Now that's a different story. Jesus comes to Jerusalem, gets on a donkey that was prearranged for, or was there, that he knew was there. The guy releases it immediately so Jesus can do one final act before and as a preparation for Holy Week. What would you do? What would you do? Goes on the donkey, enters the gate. Nobody pays any attention to him because just another prophet has showed up. Says Jesus went to the temple and looked around, surveyed Jerusalem. He looked around the Temple Mount. Herod had been working on this area of the temple for a lot of years, for almost 30 years. It's been under construction. Herod's palace is something to look for. The glory of Rome, right there with him. The disciples will even remark how beautiful this city is. And what does Jesus tell them? Not one stone will go unturned. It's temple. It's not going to last. The donkey ride is going to last. But that palace is not going to. And that temple is not going to. Where are the crowds? Because it was a little bit late, they've gone away. Nobody's interested anymore. Did it meet expectations? Interesting. And in the silence of it, you can just about hear it. Jesus looked around, and because it was getting late, he walked back to Bethany. That's a far, far trip from the video we just watched as he comes into town. That's a far trip. So the question this morning, as we replayed this entrance into Jerusalem, and I don't want to downplay the significance of the glorious hosannas that were shouted, but I do want to ask the same question. When the Lord asked you, taps you on the shoulder and says, I need this of you, will he be riding a donkey or walking? Will you let go of all that's important to you? Will you follow Jesus? Will you share your resources, your energies, your gifts, your ministries, your service, everything that you have, because you know that, like I said, next to creation, which we were all given to us, salvation is the next important thing. In this walk, in this Lenten journey that we're on, this week will be tough because it's going to ask us to do a lot of different things. We will celebrate next Sunday, and that's great. We will have the Easter, the resurrection. But if we don't take this journey, this trip, then we'll fail to grasp what happens on the other side of Jesus' walk back to Bethany. And that's just as important as the celebration. Walk with me this week. Walk with me. I hope to see you Thursday and Friday. The height of your joy will be measured by the depth of your despair. Thanks be to God.